Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff, Mosher, Adam, Caplan. It is our game preview Inside the Birds podcast. Eagles are at home for the second straight week, playing another bad team for the second straight week in the Arizona Cardinals. In fact, Adam, perhaps, the record doesn't say they're the worst team in the NFL, but they only have 3 wins. That's tied for second fewest. The only thing I find perplexing about the Arizona Cardinals is, for as bad as they are, they have some pretty good wins in their few wins. They beat the Dallas Cowboys. They went into Pittsburgh and beat the Steelers, which I know these are not yesteryear Steelers, but Pittsburgh is still a hard place to go in and win. They did that. So, and they beat the Falcons, who have not been great, but are competing to make the playoffs. So, Adam, this is a feisty Arizona Cardinals team that if you're not, if you don't watch out a little bit, they might be able to get you. And we'll talk about whether or not their quarterback's what he's going through and everything. But I'm just saying, this is a team that has already pulled off a couple of upsets.
In fact, they played the Niners. I talked to someone who graded that tape, said they were very competitive for a half against the Niners. Week 15, they got blown out in the second half. McCaffrey killed them. They almost pulled it off against the Bears. They came back. They were getting shut out, and Kyler Murray ran around and made a couple plays. And they're one of the least talented teams, but they play hard for Jonathan Gannon. And as we set the show up, what he and Monty Ossenfort, the GM, have done, they're pulling what Pete Carroll and John Schneider did in 2010. They're flipping the roster.
Mm-hmm.
They have gone through so many cornerbacks. When we break the game down and the matchups down, and you'll watch, because it's going to happen. Eagles know who they're going to go up against. And then what happens is they get burned, and then they bench him or cut him. I think they're so bad. Kavon Wallace, poor guy, he started early in the season for them. Once he regressed, they didn't even bench him. They cut him. They just cut him.
Yeah, man, what a year it's been for Kavon Wallace, right? Started off as first team safety in training camp for the Philadelphia Eagles, and now he's journeyman safety. So good stuff. We'll have this game. This is obviously a rare 1:00 game for the Philadelphia Eagles. Thankfully, we're happy for it. So that means our pregame show, Inside the Birds pregame live, that you always see with me, Adam, Greg Cosell, and Jason Avant, will be back at its normal 10 a.m. time on Sunday. So make sure you're checking us out at 10 a.m. Sunday, which is New Year's Eve. So make sure everybody's checking us out there. Got to give props to Jason Avant, as I always do. He's going to be out on the West Coast because he does sideline radio for University of Michigan. They got their big college football playoff game coming up against Alabama. So he's going to be out in California. It's going to be 7 a.m. for him to do this show with us. So the dedication the man puts in, second to none. We really appreciate it. He did a great podcast with Quentin Michael this week on our platform. The Q&A pod was, again, just so educational, pointing out some of the different things. By the way, Jason's explanation of the Devontae Smith touchdown and what a choice route is, great explanation on how Devontae Smith made that touchdown happen based on the way he ran that route. That's the type of education you get when you listen to Q&A. And the same thing with Cosell and Greg Cosell, Clay Harbor, Inside the Tape. That came out on Thursday, I believe, and it was just really educational. They noticed some different wrinkles. And I even saw Greg. Greg had a little animation. He said he fell off of his chair when he saw something that the Eagles did in this game, which we'll talk about in the game against the Giants, which we'll talk about as we get deeper into the show. So good stuff this week on Inside the Birds. And for Patreon, of course, we've decided, this was Adam's idea, and I think it was great. So good job. Kudos to you, Caplan, for this idea. Let's just do the Ask ITB live stream every week until the end of the season. Because, we know people got questions. Our Patreon members want to talk to us about everything going on with the Eagles right now.
This was a marathon. It was an hour and 15. As I told the guys, I was like, I could go 2 hours if you want. It was so fun. It was free flowing. It's like you're at a bar. This guy would say something. This guy would say something. I'd say something. You'd say something. And I felt like, because it's a live stream on Zoom. So yeah, what we're going to do, it's either going to be Tuesday or Wednesday every week until the Eagles season's over. And hopefully for them, it's the Super Bowl.
There you
Las
go.
Vegas. We did it in LA. Was it, where the hell were they? Was it Phoenix last year? Was that where Super Bowl was? I forget.
It was Glendale. Yes. Phoenix, Arizona area. Okay.
Yeah. So inside so patreon.com/inside the birds. And we got some really cool announcements, including one. I'm not going to give it away. I'll just say it was an idea I came up with. I just came to me and you stopped me. Go, oh my God, we have to do this. I was like, okay. Good.
We do.
Yeah, and we'll leave it at that.
All right, great reason to be on our Patreon channel. That's patreon.com/Inside the Birds. By the way, Inside the Birds is presented by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It is the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. So, a couple of interesting transactions this week for the Eagles. I swear, this must have happened a lot before there was such thing as a practice squad IR, and we just didn't know about it because you don't have to announce it. But the Eagles had another practice squad injury in wide receiver Devin Allen. So he's on the practice squad IR. And props to our own Andrew DeCecco from InsideTheBirds.com, because I believe on Wednesday he broke that the Eagles on his Twitter account, the Eagles were going to sign Griffin Herbert to the practice squad. Now Griffin's by trade listed, I think, as a tight end, but he's actually been practicing as a wide receiver with the Eagles.
Correct. Yes. So this is just what this is what we call an off-season signing. I say that because they're obviously not going to they're not going to move them up. They're going to try to develop them, and if they like them, what they see in practice through the playoffs, also in the practice squad, they could bring him back. So he's a undrafted free agent who was with Seattle in training camp. He's got decent size. He's 6'2", 240-ish out of Louisiana Tech. So here's a developmental guy that they could take a look at for their offseason program, and they'll work him in on the practice squad, see what happens. And Devin Allen, man, gosh, this guy's just never really contributed. They
Yeah.
tried, it didn't work. He needs to give. Well, I know he won't give up track. I get that, but he's never been serious enough as a football player, and that's just too bad. And I, you feel bad that he got hurt, but it's too bad because his speed is hard to find. They've got the punt returner of the future, that's for sure, and it would have been nice if he could have been their kickoff returner, but oh well.
Yeah, you make a great point. He was sort of out of sight, out of mind for me for the last, I don't know, 8, 9 weeks. He did get the elevation earlier in the season, but you would have thought with the explosion that he has, right? And his ability to take a defense over the top, if he can get on top of the coverage that, or even just return a punt with that explosion, that he would have been on the team by now doing it. So I guess it's just never really worked out for him, maybe as a wide receiver. The point is, I just thought with that athleticism and that speed that he had, if it was going to happen, I thought it would have happened by now, and it just has not.
And remember, he just turned 29 years old, so the chance of him making it are slim to none. It's just the
Right.
way it is. They took a shot. It's just a guy that world class speed, maybe a fourth or fifth receiver. It all worked out on a kickoff returner, and none of it worked out. Oh well, it's no harm, no foul.
No harm, no foul at all. Let us talk about the injuries, because speaking of no
Yeah.
harm, it seems like the Eagles are getting a lot better. Obviously, Darius Slay continues to be out of practice with the he's had the knee scope a couple of weeks ago, but Landon Dickerson taking all the reps in practice on Wednesday and Thursday is a great sign. He only if he as long as he's going to play, which it looks like he is, only wind up missing one game from the minor thumb procedure that he had. And Avonte Maddox continued to be full participant in practice for the first few days of practice. So I would think that this would be a good opportunity to get Avonte on the field if they want to do that. We talked about conditioning wasn't there, but this is now 2 weeks that he's going to
Five
be a
straight
full
practices.
participant practice. Yeah, 5
Yeah.
straight practices. Got to think it's a great opportunity to get him on, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a question, is he healthy enough? It's just, is his conditioning enough? Now, here's the next question. Let's move this forward. This is what you brought up to us 2 weeks ago. Let's say he's ready, okay, this week, right? Well, you're getting him ahead. The key was to get him playing before the playoffs start, particularly if they have to play week one. They still have a chance, a decent chance, not great, less than 50-50, but decent chance to get the number one seed. They need to win the final two, and they need the Niners to lose to the Rams. Niners are not going to lose to Washington, but maybe they lose to the Rams, and the Eagles would have the number one seed. So you'd like to see Maddox get some time in and just to test his conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
Play's not playing this week, but we'll see about next week. I find it hard to believe he'd play all of a sudden, but you never know. But the big ones are Zach Cunningham and Nick Morrow getting a decent amount of work in. We'll see
Yeah.
how they react from Wednesday and Thursday's work, particularly Thursday, because that's the only practice they had. Wednesday was a walkthrough. Cunningham with that knee, and Nick Morrow with pectoral. And then once they're cleared, if it's this week, how do they work this now? Because we haven't seen them all be available with Shaq Leonard, who did play better this past week. So I'm interested to see what will happen here.
I tend to think that there will be a rotation. But
Oh, really?
I also tend to think that Morrow and Cunningham will be more prominent, and that Leonard will maybe be used in specific packages. I would say as a blitzer, but as we're going to get into, blitzing right now is not in the Matt Patricia playbook.
No,
even
don't do
less
that.
than
Yeah.
way less than Sean Desai or even Jonathan Gannon. So we'll see if that continues. As far as the offensive line with Landon Dickerson back, this is going to be the first time offensive line fully has been healthy in a couple weeks. So it'll be good to see if Landon Dickerson's back at left guard, Cam Jurgens at right guard. The Eagles really haven't had their normal starting five up front for a lot of the season. Jurgens has been out a couple of times, and then Dickerson out. So this will be nice to see the full starting five
Yeah,
against the
sure.
Arizona Cardinals.
And as we get into the matchups in a minute, we'll get into the Cardinals injuries, which are significant, but
Mm-hmm.
the Cardinals are not competitive against the run right now. Defensively, they're terrible. They're so
Worst.
bad.
Yep.
Yeah, their adjusted yards for contact is over 3 yards per carry, which is 3 yards before the guy gets touched. It's terrible. It's embarrassing. Might
Mm-hmm.
even be historically bad. So I'll be interested to see, as you mentioned, Dickerson back, Jurgens, who played really well last week. I'm interested, and the Eagles ran the ball well. What their approach is, you can really do whatever they want against Arizona. But then the other thing is, if Kyler Murray does play, gets over his illness, because the Eagles have occasionally struggled against running quarterbacks, and he could always make a play. You never know, as you said to start the show today. You never know with the Cardinals what they could do. They beat Dallas. They handled them pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
They had two other decent wins, so we'll see what happens. But the Cardinals of the two teams, they're super banged up, and they got some important players on IR. There's a reason why they've cycled through a bunch of defensive linemen. That's a big reason why.
100%. So let's talk about those Cardinals injuries. I mean, it all obviously starts with Kyler Murray, who's not injured, but he's been ill. He's had an illness that has kept him out of practice. So, I mean, that's kind of a big question mark, because if for whatever reason his illness continues to linger and he can't play, remember, they had Josh Dobbs. They traded him to Minnesota. Their backup is Clayton Tune, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
He's okay.
Yeah.
He didn't play well when he had to play, but so Gannon did say prior to Wednesday's practice, he just let the media know, hey, he wasn't feeling well over the holiday. Maybe he was around people, got a virus, whatever the case may be. He indicated he was going to play, but here's the problem: Friday's their latest practice for Sunday. You don't like it, a guy who needs all the practice time. Let's not forget he missed over half the season with the coming back from ACL reconstruction, so he needs the reps. Hollywood Brown not expected to play. He's got this lingering heel problem. I know for people in fantasy, it's been a bummer. So it's highly unlikely he'll play. In fact, the last time he played, he pulled himself out. He couldn't run.
Mm.
So you got that issue. Defensively, they've got real problems. They're down now 4 linemen. Jonathan Ledbetter's the latest one. Gannon said he's not playing. He's going to go on IR. He
Mm.
had been starting for Carlos Watkins. Lecky Fotu, I'm told. They thought he had a chance to play this week. He was another guy who was starting. He's on IR. He started practicing. Kaiser White's out for the season. Obviously, he's there for a reason. Pat Elflein was going to be their starting center. He's out for the season. Jeff Swaim, their wide tight end, just went on IR 2 weeks ago. He was so key for McBride, the tight end. We'll talk about Trey McBride when we talk about the matchups. So
Mm-hmm.
he's on IR. He's done. That's a concern. Zaven Collins is back. He's expected to play with the ankle. He didn't practice Wednesday. But the problem is, when you've got all these guys out on their D line, you don't wonder why they suck against the run.
Yep.
They've kind of Carlos Watkins. He's also out for the season, formerly
Yeah.
Dallas. They
Yeah.
just can't stop anybody.
Yeah.
They don't have the players.
Fotu is a pretty good player too, when healthy and when on a functional team. Lecky Fotu has been a pretty good run stopper for them. So yeah, that's tough. They are. I mean, this is already a bad team, and now they're really beat up. So we'll see. I imagine usually when you see a guy who has an illness, Kyler Murray, early in the week, that we saw it with Jalen Hurts. You can still power through and do what you have to do. So we'll see on Kyler. If Kyler Murray doesn't play, this isn't even a game. This isn't even.
Oh,
I mean, it's just it's an embarrassment, to be honest with you. So I'm kind of hoping Kyler Murray is fine, gets back, because I'd like to see at least a good game and Kyler Murray out there. I know Eagles fans will take anything they can get, but from our standpoint, we would like to see Kyler Murray play. All right, we will get into the matchups in a second. First, we want to stop and hear from our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
All right, let's talk about this Eagles offense against the Arizona defense that, as Adam mentioned, ranks near the bottom of, nearly every single defensive statistic. They're just a bad defense. Total defense, rush defense, pass defense. They've given up, I think, the most first downs in the league. They have one of the worst third down defenses in the league. There really isn't an area where you look and say, hey, the Cardinals have really excelled at this. So this really, again, kind of like the Giants game, you want to see the Eagles win. You want to see them win somewhat convincingly. They really shouldn't struggle to move the ball unless they have self-inflicted wounds, which has hampered the Eagles. And again, they had 2 turnovers against the Giants as well. But it really should not be a case of Arizona being too tough to move the ball against. So, Adam, what Greg Cosell saw that made him fall over was very early in the game for the Eagles, they actually went under center, which is something Cosell and Clay have talked about a little bit, right? And we pointed that out on the on post-game post-game live.
Yeah, because remember, in year one, they put Hurts under center a decent amount when they became a running team, going from a passing team. So the Cardinals here, look, folks, they gave up 250 last week. Worst run defense in the National Football League, 147. Their adjusted rate for contact is terrible. They don't have the alignment to do it. So to me, if you're the Eagles, you can win this game any way you want. When they run it, they better run it well. There's no excuse. They should dominate. For folks who really follow the NFL, Roy Lopez is starting. He's workman-like player. He came over from the Texans. Dante Stills plays. They're running the same front mostly. They run a 34 front. This is Gannon's front with 2 overhangs. Dante Stills, remember Gary Stills, his dad who played for the Seahawks, was a D lineman. Dante starts for them now because they ran out of players. So that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, my guy Dennis Gardeck, who looks like Alex Anzalone with the long hair.
Yep.
He's a try-hard guy. It's been a great story. He can actually rush the passer. You'll see him number 45. Now is outside. He's strictly a pass rusher now because they ran out of guys who could rush the passer. One guy to watch, though, is B.J. Ojulari, who I really like, who's a second rounder out of LSU. Now he's wearing number 18. His players are allowed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll rush him. They'll definitely do that. And overall here, the Eagles, again, should be able to die up what they want. And Hurts, this should be a Hurts game. Like Hurts played better, improved last week. It should be able to get this stuff done here.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny because I'm looking at their rankings, right? The highest that they're ranked in any major category is 12th in passing yards per game, but that's sort of deceiving. It's not that they're middle of the pack. They allow 7.14 yards per pass, which is 4th worst in the league. It's just that, as you mentioned, teams run on them so well, they don't give up a lot of passing yards. And you look at what the Eagles have been doing lately, trying to get back to basics. You saw last week how they ran the ball effectively in the second half, especially against the Giants. And I wouldn't, blame them if they did not come out bombs. If they just came out and said, we're going to get our RPO game going, get our quick game going, and get DeAndre Swift and Kenneth Gainwell going on the ground and really try to ground and pound them. You can literally ground and pound to explosive runs against this team. So
Again,
I expect to see that. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So this is what you're going to see. This is how I want to set this up for everybody so you can understand how bad it is. This is the story of the Cardinals secondary. Marco Wilson started week 1. They just cut him at corner. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He got claimed off waivers, I think, by the Patriots. Terrell Clark, who was a 6th-round pick this season, he started a bit. They benched him. Antonio Hamilton, if you really follow league, you might remember with the Giants, the Steelers, and other teams, he's going in and out of the lineup. He now starts because they don't have anybody else. Von Wallace started earlier this season, safety. They cut him. Sterling Thomas, he started safety, of course, but Sterling Thomas was claimed off waivers from the Lions. They started him, they benched him, then now they're starting him again. Folks, they are just cycling players. As Geoff was alluding to, the Eagles should crush this team any way they want. Garrett Williams, good play. He's been their nickel corner. He had knee surgery earlier this season. He was an IR, but he's back. He's not bad. But again, he's dealing with an injury, so you got to see how he goes. And Andre Sachre is there for special teams. He's a backup safety. They're good at safety. Jalen Thompson and Buda Baker. They're terrible at corner. Again, when the Eagles throw, when the Eagles run, they're going to be successful. Why? Because their talent's just better than what the Cardinals have. It's
100.
just the way they want to do it. Weather
Great,
should be okay.
great
Go
point.
ahead and dial it up.
Great point. This is like, you know how like you say sometimes this is a throw ball game, right? Like when that this is a talent game. Like you should not lose because just on talent alone. Like the Eagles could play their B- game and probably win unless the Cardinals played their A+ game. And even still, the Eagles could win that. But again, they beat the Cowboys. They beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh. So it has happened before. I'm not saying the Eagles can take them lightly. I'm just saying that if the Eagles just do what they're supposed to do with their talent alone, they should be able to win. And to illustrate some of the defensive points, Adam, here are the categories where the Cardinals rank dead last, 32nd in the league. All right. Rushing yards allowed, third down percentage, and there was one more where they are 32nd.
Oh, they're worse than adjusted. Again, as I said earlier, I can tell you this from an analytical data point.
Oh, first downs allowed. Go ahead.
Yeah, first they've got the most first downs, but worst adjusted rush per carry. Before contact. Worst before contact, over 3 yards per carry. That's terrible. Before the guy gets hit, they're giving up 3 yards. Like that can't happen. That might be historically bad.
Right.
I don't know how they beat Dallas. I remember watching that game in week 3. Like Dallas was so bad, and Cardinals brought it to them.
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh, no, they got off to a great start in that game. They actually, I don't even know if they ever trailed. That was it rained and Pickett got hurt. It was just a bad game for them. But okay, hey, they lost.
Yeah.
But man, this is it's right up there. They could dial it up. You just talked about it. If minus the dumb mistakes against the Giants, they still scored 33 points.
Yep.
It would not shock me if they scored in the 40s in this game.
They certainly have the potential to do it. A couple of things to note in their run game. You saw a lot more tackle and guard movement in their run game against the Giants. Pin pull, which is, when you got guys, two pullers, one side, then the interior lineman kind of wash down on the interior defense. So we saw some of that, which is a little bit new. Some pistol, which allows the running back to be directly behind the quarterback and doesn't give a tell as to which way the running back might go. We saw that. And what we saw was a more effective run game for the Eagles than they've had in quite a couple of weeks. And by the way, DeAndre Swift, 12 yards away from being a 1,000-yard rusher for the first time in his career. He has had his previous high, Adam, is 617. So he's already shattered his rushing yard total. Now he's on the cusp of being a 1,000-yard rusher for the first time. However, this is his lowest of his career in receiving yards per game at 13.9. We've brought that up many times. They're just not throwing to their running backs, but he is also on the cusp of having 1,200 total yards, which is already odd. His most this year.
But wow, his career, that is, because if you look, first of all, knock on wood, he hasn't missed any time. Okay, he's already shattered his most attempts in a season. His previous high was in 21 at 151. He already has 216. He won't hit his most touchdowns in a season because he's not catching the ball. Now, I say that to start the season. It was 232, 4610. I was like, okay, well, here we go. This is what we expected. But then it's been downhill with the targets.
Yeah.
It just hurts like Wentz. They don't want to check it down. I'm pretty convinced that's what the problem is. Okay. But he did have his second 20 carry game. He had 20 for 92. Cosell brought this up on Sunday. He didn't see Swift like this. None of us did. He's averaged over 17 touches per game. That was not what we thought was going to happen. And he's up there in carries. This is a good story. I'm so fascinated to see if they try to bring him back. That a lot of people don't think they will. I don't agree with that. He fits their offense. I mean, and they protect him from getting the goal line carries because Hurts takes them all. So.
Yeah, and it's not like had such a great year statistically that he's going to be, the man on the free agent
Yeah,
market. I mean, some team
right.
might like it because he has put up career numbers, but like his career numbers aren't staggering numbers for a running back. I did get carried away. I remember in the preseason, Adam, I said I can see him in this offense from a fantasy football. I remember saying I could see him like, you may want to get him in the second round because I thought
Oh,
he was
geez.
going to, it's not that I knew his volume. I actually thought his volume was going to be less than it's already been. I just thought he was going to
Oh,
have
yeah. So do I.
a ton of explosive plays. He really had, I thought it was going to be like a mini McCaffrey, maybe only touch the ball 15 games, but get you like that 30-yard run, that 40-yard catch. But it just hasn't materialized. He's almost been more of a grinder, like you saw last week against the Giants. But they don't really have a grinder, so they use him. He was a grinder against Minnesota, right? He was a grinder last week against the Giants. There are a couple other games this year where he's had more carries than you would imagine that he was going to have. But he stayed healthy. That's been the big key for him. He has stayed healthy, so he's proved that he can take on a bigger workload, be impactful, and stay healthy. The big knock against him. So if you can bring him back at a good price, yeah. I mean, the Eagles, man. If it's going to be their number, not his. You know how that works with a running
I
back.
mean, with Sanders, they had a price in mind, which was economically low, and it never got there because they knew he was going to get paid, so it never went anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then thankfully for the Eagles, it worked out well because, I mean, Sanders got benched. The Cardinals, the Panthers are going to have to walk away from that contract because he's been so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Deuce Staley got canned, who was his biggest advocate, I'm told. I mean, there was a big reason why he signed there. He convinced the front office
Mm.
that, I mean, I get it. I mean, Sanders had a great year last year. It just didn't work out. But getting back to this situation, see, here's the thing. This is the brotherly shove on your fantasy point. I was with you. I never even thought about that. Like he would lose touchdowns to Hurts. Oh well.
Right.
But the thing that just boggles my mind is a lack of catches. It still bothers me because it's a matchup league, and you always want to get the running backs and linebackers because that's where coaches will tell you that's where the money's made. Running back
Mm-hmm.
coaches, as they've told me, that's always where you want to get them on line because they're always going to be faster. In most cases, not always, most they're going to be
Right.
faster than the linebacker. But oh well. But it's worked out. He's done a good job, and I'll be interested to see how he handles it.
8 games already this year. He's had at least 15 touches, and between that 15 to 20, which is not something that I thought he would have, including 20 against the
Oh,
Giants, 28 against Minnesota. He had 18 against Seattle. These are just carries, by the way. If you throw in some of the catches, 18 in the first game against Dallas. So I mean, he's been a more of a workhorse than we thought he was going to be, and has held up. Really interesting stuff there. Last thing in the passing game, Adam. Last week was the first time that Goddard, AJ Brown, and Devontae Smith each had at least 70 yards receiving. First time. It's going
wow,
back
they're right.
to last year when AJ Brown joined the team. So very balanced. And the big thing was that I think Quez Watkins, you brought this up in the Wednesday podcast. Didn't he play one snap?
One.
So it's funny because Jason Avant talked about I don't know if Jason even realized that Quez played one snap, but Jason was breaking down a run for Boston Scott that he said would have been a touchdown if
Oh no.
if Quez
Oh no.
Watkins had blocked the safety in front of him,
Oh.
but instead Quez got to the safety and then never touched him. And then the safety wound
Oh.
up making the tackle on Boston Scott. It also was a touchdown. I wonder if
Really?
they saw that upstairs, saw him didn't do the block, went through it quickly on the surface, and then they pulled him and said, "That's it. We give you a
Wow.
chance, and you're
Good
out."
job. Great
Yeah.
job, Ivan. I did not know that.
Yep.
That's unbelievable. The Cardinals, by the way, are not very good against the tight end. Cole Kmet had over 100 yards in the first half last week.
Wow.
The Bears. Yeah, he unbelievable catch downfield. Again, they could dial us up any way they want.
This is a
I'm
choose
so
your own adventure book, isn't it?
well. No, look, no, I agree. In the first half, though, I expect them when they run it, they're going to run for 5-6 yards per carry.
Yeah.
Then they'll take their shot plays. Arizona, when Eagles go 11 personnel, folks, which if you don't know is 3 receivers and 1 back and 1 tight end, spread them out. Now I know the Eagles usually don't use the 3rd receiver, but Zacchaeus can run. You can do that with him. Why not? That's a good player, which they would use him more. And Goddard should do well in this game. Eagles should have no problem against Arizona's front. You'll see Zaven Collins, who they move out of playing inside. He's playing outside now as a pass rusher. Ojulari, I mentioned. Gardeck. they're okay, but the Eagles will not have to worry about their pass rush,
No.
so they could dial it up here.
Which is not something that Gannon usually does anyway. So, oh, you mean the Eagles can dial it up? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, any way they want. Yep, for sure.
You know that meme of John Travolta from Reservoir Dogs where he walks into an empty room and he's looking around? Like, I'm sure
Good
Buda
round. Yeah,
Baker.
yeah. I love that
I
one.
feel like that's Buda Baker. Not that Buda is the all pro that he used to be, but he's still a pretty good player. And I imagine he walks into the defensive room and looks around and is like, is there anybody here who's like even made one Pro Bowl? Is there anybody here who can play the game?
Buda Baker, other than him, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean, other than Buda Baker. So,
Yeah, that
all
might
right.
be it. I'm thinking, is there anyone? That's a great question.
While you're thinking about that, while you're
No.
looking, is in your mind, we sort of got the idea that Julio Jones might now be the number 3 receiver based on snaps last week. I mean, clearly Quez is having a message sent to, so I'd be surprised if all of a sudden this coming week this coming Sunday against Arizona, Quez is going to be back out there playing 30%, whatever he was playing in his role as the number 3 receiver. I wonder. They played a lot of 2 tight end against the Giants. I think that was because Wink Martindale is not going to want to blitz too much when he loves to blitz, and if you come out in 2 tight ends, it makes it harder to blitz. So maybe that was game specific. I wonder when they go to 11 personnel against the Cardinals, which you think that they're going to want to do. They're not going to get blitzed a whole lot. They're not going to worry about the pass rush. Who's going to be that guy on the inside mostly?
Well, okay, here, how did Gannon, the former Eagles defense coordinator, he knows Hurts, obviously, because he practiced against him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to see what his approach is. He doesn't have the talent to work with this season, unfortunately, in his first year there, but he does have the advantage of knowing Hurts and his tendencies to leave the pocket a little bit. Does he spy Hurts? Does he think he needs to? What is his approach? And he knows that Hurts is an aggressive thrower. Who was more aggressive than Hurts last season? I know it hasn't been quite the way everyone expected this season, but when he's on, they're going to dial it up with his receivers, and I'll be interested to see what their approach is. And I agree with your point, because you dictate matchups. If you go 12, they have to play specific defense. They could go if the Eagles go 3 here. I mean, if they go 12 personnel here, then maybe that. Do they play 5-man front? Do they go big nickel? Like you're gonna have to. They're going to dictate to you. You're going to know early on if you come out in 11, they have to match you. That's called, you have to match what the offense is doing, so you can match up personnel wise with at least numbers at a certain position. So that's a good point. I'm interested to see what the approach will be.
Yeah, me too. All right, that is pretty much a look at the Eagles offense against this Arizona defense. Again, as long as they don't shoot themselves in the foot, the Eagles should be quite all right in that regard. We'll take a look at the Eagles defense versus the offense in just 1 second. I want to remind everybody that you don't have to go and plan to make meals anymore. You don't need to research recipes. You just need Hello Fresh. They deliver farm fresh food with pre-proportioned ingredients and seasonal recipes right to your doorstep. No more wasting time at the grocery store, because America's #1 meal kit helps make home cooking easy, efficient, and affordable. With HelloFresh, the shopping is already done. How's that? Well, the right amount of ingredients, the perfect amount of ingredients, arrive right at your doorstep with step-by-step recipe cards. It really doesn't get more efficient than that. Plus, HelloFresh saves you time and money. Can't argue with saving either of those. It's 25% less expensive than takeout, so you get a home-cooked meal without digging deep into your wallet. And don't forget about taste and selection. They make food for people who love meat, seafood, vegetarians, anything. You want it, they got it at HelloFresh. So go to HelloFresh.com/50Eagles and use the code 50Eagles. That's one word, 50 Eagles, for 50% off plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/50Eagles and use the code 50Eagles, one word, for 50% off plus free shipping. Act now for America's #1 meal kit. All right. Arizona offense against this Eagles defense, Adam. And obviously it's, again, I assume Kyler Murray's going to play. If Kyler Murray doesn't play, then this is going to be just a bloodbath. It might be a bloodbath anyway, but
it'll be Clayton O'Toole, who I saw at the Senior Bowl.
Man, are we already coming up with derogatory nicknames for Clayton Tune?
Don't play his tune, because it ain't gonna be good. Look, Okay, so here's what you're going to see. I'll agree with you. Let's assume from the moment Kyler Murray is going to play. Trey McBride's having a breakout season. He didn't do much as a rookie. They cut Zach Ertz. So Drew Petzing is their OC. I'm told he's running. Kevin Stefanski's 12 personnel offense. His old offense with the Browns, they've switched it up a little bit this year, but he's still going to run a lot of 12.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see now. What they were doing was Jeff Swaim is their wide tight end. He's out for the rest of the season. He was their Y, and now they're using this kid Elijah Higgins, who scored last week. Who was claimed off waivers out of Stanford. He was claimed off waivers from the Dolphins. So one guy will stay in. McBride's their pass catcher. He's had a great year. James Conner's terrific. He's not explosive, but he's just a sustainer. He can handle carries. Look at this kid DeMarcado, Amari DeMarcado, who's taken over their third down role from Michael Carter.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Carter was claimed off waivers, but Carter had it, and then DeMarcado was hurt. He came back to take it. So you're going to see that. The question is, do they spy Kyler Murray? We've seen the Eagles. Now, that was under Gannon, not so much this season. Obviously, the Eagles have a new play caller. But I'll be interested to see what they do with Kyler Murray here, how they handle it.
Yeah, me too. I mean, obviously he can sort of freelance and really break a good disciplined defense in it with his ability to. He's really good at he's not a great quarterback by any stretch of the means, but he has a great arm, and I think he's one of the better running quarterbacks at keeping his eyes open downfield to make plays while he's scampering left and right. And he's burned a lot of teams doing that, and he's made some big throws. Without Hollywood Brown, I don't want to say it defeats the purpose, but it makes it tougher for him because that's the perfect type of guy, right? To beat somebody in a plaster drill because he's just so fast so that he and Kyler can connect on those long runs. So without Hollywood Brown, that makes it tougher for him, but he can still run to the sticks, get first down, move the chains that way, even when you're disciplined. The Eagles defense in the last 2 weeks under Matt Patricia, Adam, they threw 2 blitzes in this first game against Seattle and 5. What I find fascinating about this is the team was struggling to generate a pass rush. That was one of its issues. Sean Desai gets demoted. Matt Patricia takes over and he blitzes less. So he's basically saying, I'm going to rely on my front 4 even more. And the results so far, as far as pressure, just haven't been there. They had 1 sack against the Giants, who, other than the Green Bay game where somehow Green Bay never sacked Tommy DeVito, in every other game, the guy was sacked 6 or 7 times. The Eagles only got him once. And if you look at the Eagles, Adam, over the last 6 weeks, they've had 3 games in which they had 1 sack. And in the other 3 games, they had 2 sacks twice and 3 sacks against Dallas. So they haven't had a 5-sack game since their first game against Dallas, which was November 5th. And the week before that, they played Washington and only had 1 sack. So it's amazing to me that I look and I'm like, wow. We don't like to put everything on sacks. It's about pressures, but this is a front 4 where you're expecting the pressures to amount to some sacks. And I'm looking, I'm like, wow, they've had 1, 2, 3, 4 games in their last 8 with 1 sack. That's not how this team is built, man. Like that's
pressure. They've had a lot of empty pressure.
Yeah.
Which the coaching term, which means they're getting credit for pressure, but that's not there. It's really not there. And it's
right.
Tape shows. They're just not getting the coach. Josh Sweat has been non-existent. Really good player. He's just, I don't know what everyone we've asked does not have an answer. No one seems to understand what the problem is.
Yeah. 6 games without a sack, by the way.
What's that?
6 straight games for him without a sack.
Yeah, it's troubling. It's not just sacks or individual plays. You just watch him. You don't see him. He's kind of been invisible.
Right.
I had to remember that he was number 94. So here's the deal. With the expected missing of Hollywood Brown, it's Michael Wilson, who I liked a lot, come out of Stanford, but he had an injury. He missed a lot of time. Rondell Moore, who's built like a fire hydrant, who's number 4. He was overdrafted a couple years ago. He's only 5'7". Greg Dortch, who's like a coach's favorite. He's been cut a bunch of times. He's sneaky, and Zach Pascal's the enforcer. He'll block for the run. That's their receiver core. It's not very good.
No, it's not. It's just hard to see how they move the chains, even with the Eagles. The one thing the Eagles I think have done better defensively the last week or 2 is, when it's bunch routes or most, they don't look completely lost. and they're not having two guys cover one and one guy, just open over the middle of the field. Again, they've also played one team on a backup quarterback and the other team playing two different backup quarterbacks, right? So I don't want to make too much of it. You're still seeing strange, like the Reed Blankenship, letting him get Slayton by him is almost inexcusable.
Oh,
And that play has been broken down on our platform, not only by us, but by Q&A and Cosell and Harbor. And there's not one person who can tell you that, that should have happened. Obviously it shouldn't happen, but sometimes you'll say, you know what, that kind of thing happens in the course of a game. Nah, like that should have never happened based
can't
on the
look in the
coverage they were
backfield.
playing.
We saw
Yeah.
that off TV. I'm like, what the hell is he doing? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing: Rondell Moore, number 5. Every once in a while, he makes a big play downfield. You got to be careful with him. Like as you said at the top here, you nailed it. If they don't come out, if they take this team lightly, and they don't come out with some juice, it's the last home game of the regular season. I'm not saying they're going to lose. The game will be way closer than it really should be. There's no reason why the Eagles should win by a minimum of 2 touchdowns here.
Yes.
And that's if they play average game. If they bring their A game, which we know they haven't had in a long time, but if they play a good game, they'll win by 20 or more. Arizona just doesn't have the team. They have one of the worst rosters in the National Football League. I know the Eagles on occasion play down to the competition with the Jets, but the bottom line is, as you said earlier, this is a game they should hammer them, but that's why they play the games.
All right, so here's one area where I would like to see, I think both of us, and we've talked about this, where the Eagles defense really needs to step up a little bit more, and that's in run defense. They have not been as nearly as stout as they were for the first 6-7 weeks when they were almost impossible to run on. And you can look at Arizona and say, this team actually does run the ball well. They're 130 yards per game, but even in yards per play, I don't care much about yards per game because, some teams just try to run because they're not good, and you can tally up a lot of yards, but they are third in the league in yards per carry at 4.9. So I'm sure some of that's inflated by Kyler Murray, but it's not like Kyler Murray's been playing all year long either. So they have James Conner. I feel like the Eagles need to get back to where they were in September and October. I think Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and Fletcher Cox, the interior has to set the tempo. If the 2 linebackers that we talked about play, Morrow and Cunningham, especially, then we really need to come out of this game saying that's the Eagles defense that needs to be that still exists and hopefully will be there in the playoffs. They need to put Arizona behind the sticks to kind of get their mojo back and get that pass rush going again.
I wonder if they need, and I saw Tui Blue to play last game, but it seems like Carter is hitting the wall a little bit. I don't think he's been effective. I don't think Milton Williams has been that effective as he was earlier this season when he looked like he might have been a Pro Bowler as a backup and he was so good.
Yeah.
Jordan Davis is still very effective against the run, but you see it when they take him out. He's never in passing situations. So I don't know. I maybe they're wearing down. I don't. It's been puzzling how much the run defense has regressed. It's not bad, but it's not at the historic level. And you can run against him. And Connor, not explosive, but he's super decisive. He's got great vision, versatile.
Mm-hmm.
He's a player, but it's been a great story. This has been a good signing for the Cardinals. He's done a really good job. So yeah, he's and as I said earlier, they used the DiMarcardo kid.
Mm-hmm.
Or Carter as a changeup. So this is not a give me. You got to bring your A game here.
All right. Any concern about Trey McBride? Only because the Eagles have been. Yeah.
He'll get plays.
He's a good pass catcher, and the Eagles have been exposed over the middle of the field.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really like that's it. I would like to see this Eagles defense clamp down on the run to put Arizona in some bad down and distance scenarios, and then make sure that Trey McBride is not catching 13 passes across the middle for 120 yards and helping them move the chains.
You saw what Jake Ferguson got them badly earlier this season. Hawkinson got him twice.
Yep.
So you're on your point. Absolutely, they can do it. So we'll that's one guy. Now, do they double him? See, Patricia, we don't have a big sort of map for him other than we know he's a coverage-based play caller because this is the way he's been his entire career. He doesn't blitz very much. It's the New England defense is about the skies, making the quarterback hold the ball and your D-line getting there. Now, we haven't seen, unfortunately, the D-line getting there, the latter part of what we just said here. We'll see what happens. But again, to sum it up, close this thing, it's all there for the take.
All right. we are going to give our predictions for this game first. Let's all step into 2024 with confidence, thanks to Manscaped, where resolutions are met and hairs are neatly kept. As the new year approaches, why not make self-improvement a breeze by keeping your body well groomed? Well, introducing Manscaped's Performance Package 5.0 Ultra, the ultimate all-inclusive kit designed to help you feel clean-cut and confident as you should. It features the Powerhouse Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, the next-gen trimmer that ensures precision and ease when tackling your toughest hairs. So kick off 2024 with a trim above the rest and use the code ITB at Manscaped for 20% off and free shipping. My fault. Code ITB20 at Manscaped for 20% off and free shipping. I can't believe the Birds still didn't win the Super Bowl last year, Adam. Maybe they just weren't feeling their freshest on the big day, but we can look toward the future and we can feel our best with this bundle: a brand new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, a Weed Whacker 2.0 ears and nose hair trimmer, and essential aftercare products like the Crop Soother Ball Aftershave Lotion and the Crop Preserver Anti-Chafing Ball Deodorant. Their 5th generation lawnmower also features 2 interchangeable next-gen skin-safe blade heads, one for taking a little off the top and a new foil blade to go as smooth as you want to go. Did I mention, Adam, that these are waterproof too? And I know, right? Great. Manscaped also threw in 2 gifts to ring in the new year: the Boxers 2.0 and the Shed 2.0 toiletry bag. Resolutions come and go, but a well-groomed you is here to stay with Manscaped's latest and greatest. So start the new year right, because when you look good, you feel good. Manscaped helps you sculpt the best version of yourself for the new year. New year, new you, and definitely a new trimmer. So get 20% off and free shipping with the code ITB20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code ITB20. Happy New Year to your balls. Yes, I really did say that. Hey, gotta say what the read says, right?
Right.
All right, so let's get to our friends at mybookie.ag have made the Eagles 10.5 point favorites for this game. Yeah, which is weird. It was 13 for the Giants. So I think it's interesting that's 10.5 now. And the Cardinals have won fewer games than the Giants. So it's kind of that weird thing going on. And the over under, I believe, was 48. I'm going to double check on that because, the line changes left and right. Yeah. But that's what I last saw.
It'd be higher than 10.5. That's it, huh?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be I thought it'd be similar to what the line was for the Giants, but no, that was not the case.
Okay, so we ready to do our game pick?
Yeah, go for it. What do you got?
All right, I've got it. Eagles 30, Cardinals 17. The Eagles will roll in this game, and then fourth quarter you start to see them taking some starters out, and Cardinals get some garbage time. Trey McBride will probably wind up scoring. But I expect the Eagles to take care of business. I expect them. They know this is their last home game. I expect them to play better. It's an important game here, and again, if they could have scored 49. I mean, they had 7 scoring drives last week. They just had 2 turnovers. One Goddard slips, and the other one Zacchaeus. That's Zacchaeus play. You watch football your whole life, you'll never see that play again. I mean, that's ridiculous.
That is
seriously. And did I tell you this? I didn't even know anything happened. You texted me, and I'm like, what? And because I have every game on DVR, so because I was watching the Red Zone, so I go back because I'm like, all right, something happened. You told me, so I'm like, oh boy. So I see it. I'm like, what the hell? I don't understand what happened. So I played it back 5 times. Like, this is insane. What the hell? Like, you can't make this up.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. You can watch football for a long time and never see that happen. That was crazy. That reminded me of the time a long time ago. Totally different circumstance, but how you never see these things. Do you remember there was a time where a punt went over Sean Considine's head? He wasn't the punter, but I think he was
the up back. Was he up back?
Yeah, and it went over his head and then over the punter's head, and then the other team recovered it and ran it back for a touchdown. And then they wound up outlawing in the off season, like if a ball goes over a head in that situation, then it's a dead ball. It can't be returned for a
Oh, I didn't
touchdown.
know that. Okay.
Yeah, it was some crazy thing that happened that I had never seen in my
Oh,
life and never
oh,
seen it again.
the fans were on Sean Considine. But talk about a guy we've never mentioned before. That's the first time in 6 years we've mentioned his name.
Has it? Well, I know that we should have mentioned it more because it was ultimately Quentin Michael that took Sean Considine's
Ah,
job and never gave it back.
there you go.
All right.
What's
So
your
say that again.
what's your pick?
I'm right there with you. I had 33-16 Eagles. I think it's going to be one of those
49.
kind of clean, efficient, workmanlike. You move the ball well, you score a lot of points, you play good defense. But again, I'm really focused in on not score, not outcome, sort of like process, right? Do they have
Sure.
a pass rush? Can they get more takeaways than they turn the ball over? Like the things that have really plagued this team for quite a while now, I would like to see, even against a bad team, you just want to go into that last week with better vibes. Like you're building, you're improving,
Yeah.
you're taking care of your mistakes. Let's not see a blown coverage or somebody wide open because two guys are covering somebody else on a bunch route. I would like to see all that.
Yeah, one thing before we get out of here, you'd asked me leading up to last week's game, what could these final three games mean? And I felt getting the confidence back. The schedule set up really well. Obviously, two teams that aren't very good.
Mm-hmm.
The Giants have made the quarterback change. Murray comes in missing 2 days of practice if he does play. I mean, it's all set up to feel good about themselves. And again, they have an outside shot. Say outside, certainly not above 50%, but the Rams could absolutely beat the Niners. The Rams are playing outstanding football right now. So it would be pretty cool if they somehow got the number one seed after everything they've been through. The, Hurts has had a disappointing year. We all know that, inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
But it'd be nice if he could finish well for the Eagles' sake and get things rolling, feel good about themselves, and get the confidence back because reporters keep saying it that the players are unhappy. And I
Right.
know Sirianni's been asked about it, and Nick had his issue and went on WIP. He owned up to it in his own way. He was asked, was Rob Ellis and the crew there did a good job asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. We'll see how it ends up here. But again, it's all for the taking here. And as we said to start the season, if you remember, we gave our season picks. I know I said it. I think you agree with me. You probably said it that this team will not be as good because of the guys leaving. We didn't know anything about injuries because you have to see it play out. But with the starters, the seven starter changes, the coaching changes, there's no way they'd be as good. The record wouldn't be as good.
Mm-hmm.
It could be close, which it is, but it didn't mean they couldn't get back to the Super Bowl because the rest of the league wouldn't be as good. Now, I am stunned at the Niners how bad they were against the Ravens. I get it; it happens to all of them.
Yeah.
Everybody has a bad game,
Yep.
but you know what? It's right there for the taking. The craziness of the season for everything they've been through, it's still there for them.
It is. It is. Everything. You're right. And I almost feel like the worst case scenario would be the Eagles winning this game again, like only by like 5 or 6. Because if this is another ugly sloppy win, you saw how they reacted last week to
True.
an ugly sloppy win over a division rival where you almost expect that to be the case because that's the way division games frequently go. I know they kicked the crap out of the Giants last year in the first game and in the playoffs, but they didn't in the second game. It was a 22-16 win. So I was very surprised to see how the perspective that they took. And I just thought, I think if that's the same kind of win they have against the Cardinals, it's not going to be fun. It's going to be very interesting to see how they react to that.
Yeah, and I understand why the fans who are skeptics, I get it, because they watch the team make mistakes, the turnovers, which are so annoying
Mm-hmm.
and so like frustrating. And Hurts has been a turnover machine this season. I don't quite understand it. It's the fumbles that you get concerned about.
Yeah.
But overall, he's aware of it. Sirianni's aware of it. It's still there. They're still what 11-4, despite everything this week, 3-game losing streak. It's a down year for the league. Now the league likes it all that. There's the so-called competitive balance, but it's all
Yeah.
there. No, there's no dominant team. Last year the Eagles were elite. They were the best team in the National Football League.
Mm-hmm.
They were the best team. They just didn't win the Super Bowl. Kansas
Correct.
City was 1A and they won it. Okay. Kansas City's dropped off. Look at their drop off. They're terrible right now. They can't get out of their own way.
Crazy.
It's right there, folks. It's right there.
All right. I like ending it on that note. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. As always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds. Be sure to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation.